let me call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, February 24th, and having a quorum, I'll call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, on March 29, 2023, Governor Maura Healey signed into law an act making appropriations for the fiscal year 2023 to provide for supplementing certain existing appropriations and certain other activities and projects. This act includes an extension until March 31st, 2025, of the remote meeting provisions. The February 24th Select Board meeting will be conducted by remote participation by the board. I will grant permission to Westwood Media Center to record, and anyone else who wishes to record the meeting. I think Westwood Media might be live streaming as well. If you would like to ask a question, please click on the chat room, enter your name and address, and enter your question or comment. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, enter your name and address. You'll be allowed 2 minutes to speak. Tish, did I get that right this time?
It's actually the Q&A, but the Q&A function is what they have to use, but that's okay.
Okay. Thanks, Tish. All right, chair's update. I've got 3 items. First is, this is a nice one. 25 years of service employee recognition. Each year, the Select Board recognizes town employees who have reached 25 years of service with Westwood. This is a remarkable milestone and reconfirms the employee's commitment to serve the community. This year, 6 employees have achieved this milestone. In the building department, we have Kevin Malloy and Mike McLean. Department of Public Works, we have Nicholas Triano and Gary Rowan. In the fire department, we have Ed Brown and Corey Pindell. Kevin Malloy has served as a wiring inspector with the town of Westwood Building Department since 1999. During this time, he has been involved with many major developments in town, including multiple new school buildings, rebuilding the police and fire stations, the University Ave station development, and changes in the residential makeup of Westwood. In recent years, he has been an increased focus on renewable energy and green construction that has centered on electrical services and moving away from fossil fuels. Items such as solar power generation, electrical vehicle infrastructure, and all electric homes have created more complex and constantly changing industry, which Kevin has adapted to and implemented policies for the town to be able to keep up with. He resides in Needham with his wife, Christine, and they've raised 3 children. Second from the building department is Mike McLean. Mike has worked as a building inspector for the town of Westwood for 25 years and has been instrumental in the services provided to residents, businesses, developers at that time. As a former City of Boston firefighter and a member of Local 7 Ironworker, Mike has brought a wealth of knowledge to the building division and has allowed it to succeed on its mission of ensuring citizenry and visiting public safety in Westwood. Throughout his service, Mike has also injected enthusiasm and integrity into the office. I personally have met Mike, think he's a great guy. Public Works. We have Nicholas Triano, who has been a valuable asset to our team within the highway department. Nick has continued to show his commitment to the town of Westwood every day, especially with our snow operations, as you would be hard pressed to find a storm in which he was not present. Well, kudos to you, Nick. He has a vast knowledge of our operation and is a great asset to our team. He also served as the shop steward for representing the United Food and Commercial Workers Union members. We thank Nick for his dedication and commitment to the town of Westwood. Gary Rowan has been an integral team member with the Fields and Grounds Division. Spending his entire career on the fields and grounds, Gary has dedicated many hours to ensure our fields are some of the best around. Gary is always willing to help and is extremely talented operator. When asked to jump in a machine, Gary is another team player who rarely misses a storm and juggles his work and family life during the busy summer months to ensure our operation runs effectively. We thank you, Gary, for your service to the town of Westwood. In the fire department, we have firefighter Ed Brown, who joined the department in January 19th, 1999. He is following the legacy of his father, who was a great guy I had the pleasure to work with, who served the Westwood Police and Westwood Fire Department. Ed had previously spent 6 years as a call firefighter and 6 years of full-time firefighter for the town of Plainville before joining us in Westwood. Good for us. Ed grew up and still lives in Westwood today. He married his wife, Laurie, who is also from Westwood, and they raised the 3 girls, Annie, Abby, and Molly, and they live here in town, and they're great kids. Firefighter Corey Pindell joined the Westwood Fire Department January 19th, 1999. Corey and his brother, Brad, who was a Westwood police officer, grew up in town, and now both serve in the community. Outstanding. Corey is one of the most beloved members of the department, is known as Uncle Corey to all Westwood fire families. He is now a senior member assigned to Group 3, Station 2 in downtown Islington. Congratulations and thank you to these wonderful employees for their service and dedication. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that you're going to present them personally with a clock. Is that correct?
That is correct, Joe.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Mhm.
Well, thank you to all of you. Next on my list is, I just wanted to mention the John J. Cronin Public Service Award for 2025. We are still accepting nominations. This award was named for the late John J. Cronin, town treasurer, who for many years selfishly gave of his time for the betterment of the community, both as an elected official and numerous volunteer activities within and outside the community. Past recipients include Al Wizialko, Tom McCusker, whom I mentioned earlier, Ned Richardson, Barbara Delisle, Steve Rafsky, Michael Crone, Pat Ahern, and Jimmy Gavin. Nomination forms are available online on the town's website or contact the select board's office at selectboard@townhall.westwood.ma.us, and we'll have one sent to you. And these should be submitted to town hall by March 7th. And the nomination committee will review those. Lastly, there will be a public presentation on the proposed Fire Station 1 project put on by the fire department leadership team. So it should be very informative. This will take place at the High Street Public Library on March 4th, 7 p.m. All are welcome. And Chris, I'll hand it off to you, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. I just two comments. Last Friday in our police department, we had 2 promotions. I'm happy to share with the board and with the community that Christopher Alward is now Lieutenant Christopher Alward. So I want to congratulate him on that. And Sean Hannon is now Sergeant Sean Hannon. So we want to congratulate both of them on their promotions and their continued good work in Westwood.
Oh, that's great news. Thanks, Chris. Next we have, unless Marion or Rob, you have anything to chime in along here? Cool. Okay, new Westwood Poet Laureate recommendation. The select board will hear the Poet Laureate Selection Committee's recommendation for the new Poet Laureate. We have Elizabeth McGovern, Lynn Vitti, and Beth Swinning. And Beth, congratulations. I'm sorry, Lynn, congratulations to you on your recent second place award for Little Skate at Ballston Beach at the Regional Cape Cod Contest. So this is wonderful. That's great. So I'm going to hand this over to Lizzie. Are you going to take this?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do a little intro. Please ignore the TV sounds from my 2-year-old in the background. So it is my great honor to represent the selection committee along with Lynn Vitti tonight and officially submit Beth Swinning for the position of the next Poet Laureate of Westwood. Beth is a creative dynamo who is passionate about teaching performance poetry in Westwood. She's been a teacher here long before she became a resident. I've got to work with her over the years in many capacities, so I'm thrilled by this. And as Poet Laureate, I think Beth will embark on a mission that celebrates the power of words and, to all far reaches of Westwood. So I'm going to hand off to Lynn Vitti, who's going to speak. Our current Poet Laureate, Lynn Vitti, is going to speak a few more words, good things about Beth before we do the official nomination.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you.
I'll try to keep this short. I could say a lot about Beth. I co-chaired the selection committee with Lizzie, and we had several other members who were either residents of the town or in one case we had Julia Horowitz, who's one of the newer librarians, who also is a writer herself. We had a big job because there were a lot of papers to read. There were a lot of poems to read. There was a lot of thought that went into this. But I think the committee did come to a consensus, and I just want to read a couple short comments and then sort of summarize. So I'll take about a minute. I think that I like this comment. As an elementary school librarian, Beth brings poetry to our town every day and is genuinely excited about reaching beyond the elementary school level to the town at large. This other comment really struck me because it came from one of the poets in my Tuesday night workshop who has been writing poetry forever. He's a carpenter by trade. And he said, this person, meaning Beth, enjoys poetry as an expression of the subtleties of everyday life and knows how to speak of poetry as art. I think that kind of sums up a lot of what was really driving our conclusion. Just to summarize, we concluded that Beth really checks all the boxes. She has a lifelong commitment to poetry. She's been writing poetry since she was a child. She was very active when she was in her 20s in the open mic slam poetry circuit. So she's used to performing poems, not just writing them on a page. And I think that would be a good change for somebody in this position. She's already embedded in the community in Westwood, and this was very important to us as one of the criteria. Through her teaching and her collaboration with teachers across our system, she's shown that she's a great team player. And I know from my own experience, that's a big part of this position. She has the experience as a spoken word poet, and lately she hasn't been going to open mics because she has a career, but she does presentations all the time in her work as a teacher librarian, and she's become very skilled at it. She's a collaborator and a networker. That's obvious because you can't be a librarian in a school without being a collaborator. And I think also really important to have our second poet laureate is that she has a youthful enthusiasm, even though she's a seasoned teacher. And I think that is very important in this position. So that's all I have to say. I'm thrilled to recommend her.
Thank you, Lynn. Mary Ann, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
I have a couple of comments. Thank you, Joe. First of all, Lynn, I just want to thank you for the honorable job that you have done as our inaugural Poet Laureate. You have inspired so many, myself included, with your work and your art, and we are so grateful to you for that. I have just one disappointment, which is that I didn't get my poem on demand at Westwood Day, but because of the weather. But I will be in line next year, and I hope the typewriter will be there.
I have to say,
You don't
we've
have to
done
wait.
this at the library. We have another, March 2nd, we'll have another one, and then we'll have another one in April. So I'll send that information to you. But I
Thank
also just say, I still have a few months in this gig, so you know, there'll be more to come.
Well, good. Well, I didn't want it to go unsaid. And Beth, I am so pleased to meet you. I am so excited that you are entering this role. I really enjoyed reading your poetry. I love when we do this because we get to read poetry as part of our select board homework, which is a joy. And I am just delighted that you will be taking on this role. So thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to echo Mary Ann's thanks to Lynn as the inaugural Poet Laureate, and Beth, congratulations to you. I will tell you that two of those poems really sort of connected with me. The New Way to Drive was exactly how I felt when I first came here. And then, you know, as a former coach, the whole notion of believe. I love both. So congratulations, welcome to the role. And Lynn, thank you so much for all that you've done.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Mary Ann. And I echo their sentiments. Lynn, you've been outstanding. And we're looking forward to Beth as our new Poet Laureate. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I would. I am delighted to move that the Select Board appoint Beth Swinning to serve as the Westwood Poet Laureate for a term to end on May 31, 2017.
2017.
2027. 2027, my apologies.
That's okay. I'll second that motion.
Well, back to the future.
Right.
Roll call, Mary Ann,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Unanimous vote. Congratulations, Beth, and thank you so much. And Lynn, thank you to you and Lizzie as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Next up, we have a public hearing for unattended container license at Helpsy 710 High Street. Could I have a motion to open this hearing, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mary Ann,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. My understanding is we have Nora and Lisa in the wings. Is that correct?
That's correct. So this application is for 2 new unattended donation containers at the mobile station at 710 High Street. The property is owned by the Global Montello Group, and the applicant for the unattended donation containers is Lisa here. The company is Helpsy, and they have partnered with Global for these 2 containers that would collect clothing essentially, which would then be baled and sold to thrift stores throughout the United States or Latin America to help with recycling of the materials. The 2 unattended donation containers were reviewed in an administrative EIDR, and approval was granted in January. And now we're asking the board to issue a license or 2 licenses, I believe it is, for the 2 separate containers at this location.
Thank you, Nora. Mary Ann and Rob, do you have any questions?
I do. I just wanted to ask, I do understand that these containers will help us with our sustainability goals in town. I did want to understand, and for the residents as well, is Helpsy a for-profit entity?
I'm Chief of Staff at Helpsy. Helpsy is a for-profit company. We're actually a public benefit corporation and a certified B corporation. So we do work with a lot of nonprofits, but we ourselves are not a nonprofit. So annually, we contribute about $500,000 a year to our nonprofit partners, who most of the time receive an overabundance of clothing donations that they don't necessarily have a use for. Something that sets us apart in terms of the material that we handle is, yes, we can take the clothing for reuse, but we also have the capacity and responsible outlets for things that are non-wearable, household textiles, things that may be torn, and that the smaller thrift stores maybe don't have capacity for.
That's great to know. Are you able to quantify, Lisa, is there any percentage of what would be collected at the receptacles in Westwood that would go for a charitable purpose?
I'm not sure, but let me back up and give you some information about generally kind of on a larger scale, not necessarily like that location specifically, what happens to the material. Helpsy sells primarily to North American markets. So it's really important for us to keep things domestic and where we know that they're going to get the highest next best use. And so we sold 97% of our collections to North America, to the United States or Canada, and the smaller percentage was either Central America or overseas. We have great relationships with our buyers, who are mostly sorters and graders, or they own their own thrift stores and they're looking for merchandise for their stores, and we'll buy back things that don't work for them, because our mission is twofold. One is keep clothes out of the trash. We say clothes, but it really applies to all textiles, and also to provide honorable work. So broadly speaking, every 8 to 10 bins that we place is a full-time employment for somebody in Massachusetts. We have a property, a facility in Woburn. So out of Massachusetts, we operate in Woburn. And we're a second chance employer. So we intentionally hire people and give them second chances. So if they're willing to work hard, and they can earn, if they're all shareholders in the company, they all have benefits, and there's an incentive pay based on their productivity.
And could you just tell folks briefly what types of items would be accepted?
Sure, pretty much anything. Anything that is wearable. So clothing in any condition. So shoes, any kind of tops, bottoms, shoes, accessories, handbags, lunch boxes, backpacks, suitcases. It's not uncommon for the clothing bins to collect things that are not clothing. For example, people may, with well intention, put in toys, put in books, put in small appliances. And while that's not our main focus, we do take very seriously not that sending anything to the trash. So through our years in the industry, we've developed partnerships with e-waste recyclers, with book vendors, people who want we call it bric-a-brac in the industry. So it could be the toys and any of the houseware. So even though that's not our main focus, we get it. It happens. People put it in the bins and we collect it. And when it gets to the warehouse, we sort it for one of those channels.
Thank you very much. Sounds like you're doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Rob, did you have any questions or comments?
No, Marianne, thank you for those questions. And Lisa, thank you for the work that you do. Nora, the only question that I had, and I'm guessing it was probably part of the EIDR piece, was where on the site are those going to be located?
They are located right near the dumpster, just to the right of the dumpster. So if you're coming up, I guess if you're coming up High Rock Street, where there's the
Hartford.
traffic light at
Hartford, yeah.
Hartford Street, where you come to the traffic light, they're right ahead. You can
Okay.
see them existing there now. There are 2 blue bins.
Very good. No other questions from me, Joe.
Thanks, Rob. Tish, do we have any questions from the audience?
There's just one comment from a Susan, but she did not provide her address. So there is a comment from Claire Galkowski, 320 Dover Road. Helpsy operates in some of the South Shore towns for which I work and provides terrific service. They even pay the towns that host their bins on municipal properties. And there's another comment from Karen, but unfortunately, there's no address.
All right, we'll give her a couple of seconds here. Lisa, sounds like you're doing some pretty outstanding work.
Thank you. I would add that I'm joining you from Maryland, but I was actually born in Massachusetts. So out of the 10 states we operate, that's one of my favorites. And
Good move, good move.
Tish, it looks like Karen added her address, but I think you may have.
I might have inadvertently deleted
Answered her
her
question.
question, and I apologize, Karen.
All right, well, we
Okay.
can let her pop back in if
Karen's
That's-
question was, would there be additional bins added to the existing?
There would not. So there are 2 bins. They've been placed there already, and those are the 2 bins that would be licensed through the select board. So the bins were placed. I think Global Montello didn't understand that they needed an unattended donation container license. And so when the bins were placed, then our licensing agent, Karen Flynn, got in touch with them, and we've been going through the process. So it took until January to get the administrative site plan approval completed. And now that that's done, it's rightfully before you, but it's just the 2 bins that are there now.
Thank you, Nora. Pat, anything from your end?
And
Not
hold
at
on one
this time,
second.
Joe.
Okay.
Just
I'm sorry,
Joe,
Rob.
just so you know, there's Susan is at 30 Russell Ave. She had an original comment that the containers are already there, which we just talked about. And it says the Baptist has similar containers and the goods were stolen. How will you handle this?
Oh, will us?
I was like, should I answer this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer that so we can move on. I would assume that if something is stolen, the Westwood Police Department will be notified and investigate wherever that occurs.
That's also, it's a very open and public place. The bins up behind the Baptist church were very isolated.
Thank
It's
you,
also
Pat.
it's also the location where the business operation is open all day until 10 o'clock every night. So it's well lit and right in the center of town.
Great point. Thanks, Nora. All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
I would I move that the select board grant unattended donation container licenses to Helpsy for 2 clothing donation containers and for the containers to be located at 710 High Street, and also for the electronic signatures of the select board to be affixed to the unattended donation container licenses for Helpsy.
Second that.
Motion has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Lisa, thank you so much. It sounds like you're doing some great work. And Nora, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can we have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you all very much. Next on the agenda, we have, bear with me here. Public hearing for BiBi Enterprises LLC doing business as BiBi's Café and Bakery, number 1 Church Street, new common victualler license. Could I have a motion to open this hearing, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well, unanimous. And Nora, I think you're on for this as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. So this is a request for a new common vittler's license for BiBi's. BiBi's is at 1 Church Street. It's been there, to double check, but I think it's been nearly 10 years now. The original operator who constructed the building and started her business there, BiBi, also known as Fatna, has decided to retire, and she is selling the business to a Westwood resident, Charlie Nunes. And he is interested in taking over and continuing a very similar operation with a very similar menu going forward. The hours of operation would remain unchanged Tuesday through Sunday from 8 to 4 p.m. And the building department, the fire department have already reviewed the property and found everything to be in compliance. The health department is currently reviewing the plans. I think there are minor changes that are being made to the kitchen. And once that review is complete, then the building commissioner will be able to issue a new certificate of occupancy. So the request here is for the select board to grant a new CV license to Charlie Nunes to operate BiBi's Café from Tuesdays from 8 to 4 p.m. The parking, I believe there are 7 parking spaces associated with the property. They have received all of their planning board approvals over the years. Their most recent approval was for outdoor seating, which was approved by both the planning board and by the select board in the past. So I think the new CV license would look to continue that same outdoor seating. And I believe that Charlie and Fatna are both here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Nora. Mary Ann, I'll lead off with you. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, Rob?
No, I did not, Joe.
Wonderful. Tish, anything in the queue for questions?
No, nothing for BiBi's.
All right. Town council, you're all set with this?
I am.
Thank you, sir. Could I have a motion, please?
Yes, I move that the select board grant approval of a new common vittler license for BiBi Enterprises LLC, DBA BiBi's Café and Bakery, pending the issuance of a food permit by the health department and certificate of occupancy by the building department. In addition, for the electronic signatures of the select board to be affixed to the BiBi Café and Bakery common vittler license.
Before I second that, I just want to congratulate Fatna and thank her for all her years of doing business here in Westwood, and welcome Charlie. And with that, I will second Mary Ann's motion.
Thank you, Rob. Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Unanimous vote. And could I have a motion to close the hearing, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Charlie and Fetna, wishing you both the very, very best from the select board, and it was nice seeing you this evening. Nora, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, oh, Nora's not getting away. I've got a change of manager, but Tish, is there an update on this?
No, Nora and Mr. Sperber is joining to provide an update.
Yes, so this application was withdrawn this evening or late this afternoon. And Mr. Sperber's here to explain. The application was for a proposed change in manager. However, the manager that was going to be taking over is not going to be taking over now. So, Mr. Sperber, would you like to explain in more detail?
I would. I don't have much, unfortunately, much more detail. I just found out today that the new manager, store manager, is no longer working for Roche Brothers as of this weekend. So therefore, obviously, we can't go forward with applying for him as the manager of record. So I am waiting for word as to who's the succession, as it were, and to get the name, and my intention would be to file a new application once we name the new manager, which should be imminently.
Mr. Sperber, thank you so much. I'm sure you're disappointed. Roche Brothers is a wonderful supermarket and member of our community, so we're certainly going to be supportive in any way we can. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and we look forward to seeing you down the road. Mary Ann and Robert, do you folks have any questions or comments?
I do not.
No.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Mr. Sperber.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you.
Next we have grant for regionalization of dispatch services. I believe Brian Camp will be discussing this evening with us. Is Brian on board here?
Yes, he's coming in right now. And Chief Lund is here as well.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, if I could just give a little bit of context, I've been working with Brian on this. So
Yes.
at our last select board meeting, we did a presentation about the plan to regionalize with Dover, the study we had conducted through the Collins Center, and how we were going to move forward with that. So we've been pursuing the grant. It was due or is due early in March. And as we were finalizing that grant application, we were coming across a couple of things that weren't super consistent. So we had reached out to our colleagues at State 911 to ask for clarification and said, just want to make sure we have all of this correct as we move forward. And the state actually came to us and said, oh no, that's not right. And we said, what do you mean that's not right? We have a study that the state paid for that said we're going to get X, Y, and Z. And the state said, I don't know what to tell you, but you're not getting X, Y, and Z. You're getting A, B, and C. So we wanted to just come up and give a update on how we're not going to be moving forward with the program that we had initially laid out. Brian's going to talk a little bit about the differences in between what we were told and what is actual, and how we're going to be moving forward to modernize some of our radio infrastructure. So Brian, I'm going to let you speak first, then Chief Lund is going to chime in, and then all three of us are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Molly. Good synopsis.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me back. I just wanted to discuss our project a little bit. As Molly said, during a thorough review of the feasibility study and during the preparation of application materials, an error was identified in the Regional Communications Feasibility Study conducted by the Collins Center. This miscalculation incorrectly indicated that the town of Westwood would receive an additional funding of approximately $3.7 million, which unfortunately is not the case. Fortunately, while doing our due diligence, we identified the mistake. With that being said, the working group met to discuss if moving forward would be in the best interest of the town, and as a group, we decided it was not. We do acknowledge that we have some areas that need immediate attention, and I will provide an update on those areas. As we previously discussed, our radio is at end of life. To assess the cost of upgrading and rebuilding the public safety, police and fire radio system, budgetary estimates were requested from 2 radio vendors. Cybercom came in with a cost of approximately $700,000, and Allcom provided a budgetary quote of approximately $850,000. Allcom's quote was a little higher because they were including a fire station alerting and dispatch radio software, which intertwines with the Station 1 project. In addition to getting the budgetary quotes, we worked with our radio vendor to identify some alternate temporary solutions. Until an alternative funding source is secured, our current radio vendor, Allcom, has generously offered to install a loaner radio system for the town. That installation began today, actually, and is due to be completed by the end of the week. This temporary system will be configured similarly to the proposed new system, allowing us an opportunity to identify any potential pain points before committing to a full-scale design and purchase. Our radio infrastructure repair, as we previously spoke about, the Fox Hill Water Tower needs a new HVAC system, which is currently being procured. I'm working with Jim McCarthy on facilities to locate a replacement that fits our specific cabinet. This replacement will be funded through radio infrastructure allocations already funded in the police department budget. Fiber redundancy, in collaboration with Comtrack, budgetary quotes have been obtained to support an application for the FY25 Community Compact Municipal Fiber Grant Program. This initiative is offered by the Haley Driscoll administration, and it aims to enhance community fiber connectivity. The grant application opens March 10th and will cover 95% of the costs associated with improving redundancy and interconnecting our radio sites here in town. We are also continuing with our state 911 support and incentive grant and our training grant. We apply every year and we get approximately $55,000 in support and incentive funding. We also apply for a training grant through the Massachusetts State 911 program. These grants help offset costs related to communications equipment, communications personnel, and training of the communications staff. And lastly, we previously spoke about our staffing in the communication center. Efforts are underway to get staffing up to 2 dispatchers on a shift, 24 hours a day. To support this goal, we are working to consolidate some part-time positions into 1 full-time position. This will help bring us closer to achieving the full shift staffing, particularly during the overnight shifts. Again, we're working within our means to identify ways to increase the shift coverage with minimal cost to the town. The chiefs, Chris, Molly, and myself have all been working cohesively to identify alternative methods of achieving the communication center goals while remaining fiscally responsible. That's my update.
That's excellent, Brian. Chief Lund, Steve, is there anything you wanted to say at this time?
Yeah, so when the grant came about, Brian said we thought we were going to get a lot more money than we actually were, and that's why Chief Silver and I were on board with bringing on another town, where the money's just not there. It's not worth the lift at this point. Dover Fire and us couldn't be any more opposite. They're a call department. They operate completely different than we do. So if we're not going to get a brand new system out of it and the yearly benefit from the grant, then it's just not worth it for us.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Brian, I spoke to you at another event, and kudos to you for your diligence, and Molly and Steve, and to our police chief Jeff as well. I can't emphasize enough the diligence to make sure you dot the i's, cross the t's. You guys did some great work. I know you put a lot of hours into it, and I'm certainly disappointed that it couldn't come to fruition, but I'm sure it doesn't match your disappointment, especially for what you guys did. Steve, I know you and I talked about it. You guys did some great work, and Molly, you too. let me pass this over to Mary Ann. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And first, I want to echo what you just said, to thank the team for all of the diligence on this. I'm sure this comes as a great disappointment. Brian, just a couple of quick questions. First of all, for the residents, would you please just remind us who was on the working group that you referenced?
Sure, the working group for Westwood was myself, Chief Silva, Chief Lund, Molly, and Chris.
Okay. And the loaner temporary system, what is the loan period for that, where you get to try it out?
Great question. So we asked the same question, and they will give it to us for as long as we need. The previous town that they loaned a system out to had it for approximately 2 years, because as we know, it does take a while to set up funding for these systems. It's a big request. So they're very flexible. They're our current radio vendor. We've been working with them for years. So they're being very generous with us and providing us with the system.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Rob, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, just a couple further questions, Brian and Stephanie. So, building on Mary Ann's question about how long for the loaner system, I guess one of the questions that I have is, does that mean we have already settled on Allcom if they're giving us a loaner system? Because there's a pretty significant difference in the cost quotes. Though, Brian, I heard you say that the figure included some things that are part of the FS1 project. So help me get a little more apples to apples understanding of the cost quotes. And then what does that mean in terms of, procurement?
Sure. So going with the loaner system first, the loaner system, we don't have to go with Allcom. They're just our current vendor. They're being very generous. They're offering us the system. Obviously, they would like for us to go with them if we do get a new radio system, but there's no commitment for us to go with them for a new radio system. And then as far as the quote, again, Allcom was approximately 150,000 more because it include fire station alerting as well as new dispatch software. So it's intertwined into the new Station 1 project, because when that gets built, they're going to need station alerting within that new station. So this system is an updated version of what we already have. A lot of the equipment related to communications, as we previously spoke about, is outdated. So this is an update to those systems, which will be completed if Station 1 does go forward.
Part of that, Laura, was we were trying to, if we were getting that grant, it was going to pay for that station alerting software. So we were trying to take that cost out of the Station 1 project, but it's probably gonna have to go back in now.
Great, thank you. Chris, my apologies for not acknowledging your hard work on that team as well.
No problem, Joe. Thank you.
Well, kudos to you too. Are there anything else, Brian, Steve, you guys would like to say?
The only other thing I do want to say is we are still continuing to look at different grant opportunities. Any way that we can, be responsible and, save the town money, that we're gonna try for. So that is something that we're still working on as a group.
So just a clarifying question, Joe, sorry.
Yep.
The additional equipment or system that is part of what you're saying is sort of intertwined with FS1 sounds like something we would need regardless. So how was that not part of the other company's quote? Cybercom?
Because I had asked for that back in August before we even knew what was going on here.
Okay, so in the event that, they were to win, they would also need to provide that same type of equipment. So there should be a more apples to apples price is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be a new quote.
Okay. All right.
And Brian and Chris, I'm sure you gentlemen have been discussing this with town council as well in regards to some of the issues that Rob raised tonight and justifiably so. So I think that's great too. Is there anything from the audience or anything, Tish?
No questions.
All right. So unless Mary Ann or Rob, you have anything else, I think we can probably move on. Does that sound fair?
It does.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve and Molly and Jeff and Chris for joining us this evening and filling in on that endeavor. I'm sorry things didn't work out, but it sounds like you're on top of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our waste management contract extension. For the board to review the waste management contract extension, Todd Corchin and Heather Lauro from Waste Management is joining us this evening.
And we also
Todd,
have Ryan
this?
on as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So,
Brendan's
Thank you.
Brendan's waking up from all the snowfall, so he's going to join us now. Thank you again for having us tonight. As you mentioned, Joe, Heather, Laura was on with us as well, with Brendan and I, and we're basically here tonight just to provide a general update as to where our negotiations currently stand with respect to waste management, as our contract is yet to expire this coming July. Just a quick little history as to where we've been over the past several months. We began negotiations late fall, early winter. And Heather will tell you, Brendan will tell you, we've been back and forth on several occasions, doing our best to grind waste as much as we possibly can. And just even more of a background with respect to our relationship with Heather over the years. She's been with Waste Management for a number of years, and Brendan and I are very familiar, very close with Waste Management. She's been a tremendous contact with us over the past number of years that we've been involved with them. We're trying, from a Department of Public Works standpoint, just trying to make the best decision, both fiscally and operationally. There's so much that goes into this. There's the level of communication, there's the level of continuity, level of familiarity, and level of comfortability. And those are items that you just simply can't put a dollar value on. But that said, there are several things that we have looked at in the contract. And as I referenced, we've gone back and forth on several occasions. Items, Joe, I know it's been brought up on many times, the yard waste collection. So where we stood back when we submitted our original FY26 budget back in early November, we were just accounting simply for 10 collections. I'm happy to say now, with the two proposals that we currently have, one of which is a 3-year proposal, the other is a 5-year proposal. Both proposals do have an 11th collection put into the equation. In our current FY26 on both proposals, our current budget that we have submitted is more than enough to carry through and cover the 11th collection. So where we currently stand now, there is a 3-year proposal, there's a 5-year proposal. And as I referenced earlier, our department is just looking at this as from a standpoint of, what is the best move for the town? How much does all that communication and continuity, familiarity, and comfortability weigh in? And to Brendan and I and our department, I can speak for ourselves and a number of residents in town, the familiarity and comfortability with Rocky and Julian as our drivers go a long way as well. So when we were looking at this, like I mentioned, yard waste collection is a big deal. Another thing that's a hot topic, more so behind the scenes, is the prevailing wage rates. And DLS is annually, and Heather, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but annually reviewing the prevailing wage rates, and they do vary from region to region. In other words, what Westwood pays their drivers and say Wellesley, Newton could be a completely different rate than what other communities are paying, just the way DLS looks at prevailing wage rates. And there are residents in town that have been very helpful over the years. Claire Goskowski came in a few weeks ago. She brought up some great points that we're looking into. And we're always open to, opinions and feedback from the community. But at the end of the day, we have to make a decision that we do feel is the best decision. So, that said, I know the select board might have some questions pertaining to the 3- and 5-year proposal. Heather's here, Brendan's here, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Heather. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, Todd, did you or Heather want to talk about Rocky and the other driver? There was something in my packet about that.
Yeah, I'll just quickly on a personal note with Rocky and Julian and Brendan, he can even speak more so to this. We have such an open channel of communication to both the drivers. They've been tremendous. The 22 plus years I've been in town, I believe they've been here all 22 years. When I was a heavy equipment operator, they were always helpful out in the field. And even now, they're always a phone call away. Brendan's more suited to site specific examples. And Heather, please feel free to brag and talk about their most recent awards.
You're on, Heather.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so Julian was just recognized as helping, you must have gotten the article in your packet as helping one of your residents. So he was recognized throughout the organization. That was a big deal. We praise him for that. Rocky and Julian have been a staple in your community, like Todd said, for multiple years. Rocky is actually up for Driver of the Year award throughout our whole company, which is a big, huge accomplishment. We don't have the results yet, but we're hoping that he gets that honor. And I guess there's some type of prize. I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's a big thing for the drivers. So those are two of the things. I know that they adore working in the town of Westwood. They're a staple. They have been with you for so long, and they know their routes and they know what they're doing. So we're salute to them for all the hard work that they provide.
Heather, you're too modest. The truth is that Julian saw a woman who suffered a rather significant injury and recognized it and went and comforted her and called 911 and saved the day. So
yeah,
kudos
he
to
certainly
him.
did.
And if and when Rocky does receive that Driver of the Year, we'd sure appreciate a heads up to the select board. We may just pop in on that award ceremony if that pans out. So
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Of course. Thank you.
yeah. I guess so Todd, thank you so much for being so gracious with me being a thorn in your side about the yard waste pickup. You got the patience of Job. You too, Brendan. So I'm happy to see that in there. Chris, if I recall correctly, you said to me at one point that if Marianne and Rob support this, then we should be able to go forward when Todd finalizes all of the contract details. Is that correct?
Yes, I said that the select board should vote on the additional collection. If that's what the board wants us to do, then we'll move forward with that additional collection.
Okay, so we need a motion for that additional pickup. Is that what you're saying?
You would need a motion and to vote on that, yes.
Okay.
Hey, Joe,
Okay.
I just want to jump on the yard waste collection a little bit
Wait a minute,
more
let me
because
find you, Todd. Okay, gotcha.
you got me back.
Yeah, no,
Did I disappear from you?
No, I got a
No,
really tiny screen down here. I couldn't afford a full one.
It's all good. I'm little anyways. So, but anyways, just to go back to the yard waste, it's a tricky one because, and Heather will even say, the disposal of the yard waste now has become such a thorn on everybody's side. The cost is jumping left and right. I have spoken with some communities that, yes, they're paying a cheaper rate, but even now their contractor is coming back to them threatening that they're raising the rates because they can't find a location. It's not like the days of, PJ Hayes had a yard here and there and everywhere that you could just roll up and dump this stuff. And it almost is mirroring the recycling issues of contamination that we're having with respect to people throwing rocks, boulders, larger debris than what's acceptable at these plants and these facilities. So it is something that we'll forever look at. I had a great conversation with Heather with respect to if the town ever decided to pull back one or two or pull back completely, and we decided to figure it out on our own, we certainly would have the flexibility to do that as well. But for now, and with the level of expectation of the community and building this 11th pickup in, if that is what the select board decides to do, it's just, I reference those four big ones: the communication, continuity, familiarity, and comfortability of having waste management do it, and their knowledge and background of the community is something that in a sense you get what you pay for. And that's not only with the yard waste collection, it's with all facets of the trash and recycling program that we have with them. So there's something to be said with that. And I'm not simplifying or dumbing it down to a motto of you get what you pay for, but it's a quality of service and a deliverable that they continue to provide to the community and a level of expectation that our community has.
Thank you, Todd. So let me see if I have this correct, and Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to ask my fellow select board members if they support this. Rob, I'm sorry.
That's
Saw
all
your
right.
hand. Go for it. Yep.
Thank you. So a couple of things. One is, Todd, thank you for explaining that in a little bit, and certainly not looking to, in any way get involved in the negotiation. I just want to ask a question for the clarity of the community. Heather, when we look at that significant jump in the yard waste rate, right? It's jumping by almost 50%.
Yep.
So what's the driver behind that? Can you elaborate on that so that we understand?
Yeah, so there's the main factors that we determine our collection costs throughout, for some of the services are prevailing wage rates, windshield time, density, road miles, disposal wait times. And with yard waste, it also includes disposal, the cost of disposal. So just to give you an example of what has transpired since we initially negotiated this contract back in 2020, the cost of disposal for yard waste was roughly $300 per load. It has gone up 200% since then. So every load of yard waste that we deliver to the end site it costs $900. So times that by the amount of loads, which is roughly between 98 and 100 per the season for the 11 weeks. That's the main driver. So about $90,000 of that cost is simply disposal. And that's because there's very limited outlets. And we're delivering your material to a facility in Hyde Park right now. It's the closest to you. You have some neighboring towns that bring their material there as well, and they're facing the same thing. So that's really what it is.
Okay. And then Todd, before we make any motions on anything, I just want to understand. So the incremental pickup, the 11th pickup is an additional $29,000. And so what is, if anything, in your budget at risk as a result of that?
As it stands right now, and what we've been able to negotiate for potential terms, be it a 3 and/or a 5-year contract, I feel comfortable that we have enough contingency built in to cover the variables, and the variables being, well, the one major one, Rob, would be the prevailing wage rates. And that's something that we get whacked over the head with, blindsided with. And it's always good to carry enough of a cushion. And I'm very confident that we've done that with our FY26 budget submittal.
And just as a question, if you're including this in a contract, that 11th pickup is ongoing for the life of the contract. So we're not voting this as a one-time test. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what it is you're asking us to vote.
This is more of an FYI, more of a heads up and update as to where we currently stand with negotiations. But if I'm answering your question correctly, we have the flexibility to scale back, scale down as many as we wanted to with respect to the yard waste collections, and or just eliminate all of the collections if we ever decided to do that. But obviously we would have to provide ample heads up, enough of a heads up to Waste Management, which would, in my eyes, a couple of months notice, I think would be suffice.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And at that point, obviously the 20, however many collections that we were scaling back, that would be just deducted off of our annual cost.
Is that good, Rob? Are you good?
Yep.
Okay. Marianne, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. First of all, thank you, Todd, for your presentation. Thank you, Brendan. Heather, thank you for being here. And I do want to underscore what you said, Todd, and I've spoken to you about this. Number one, from your perspective, yours and Brendan's and the department, you have assessed the work of Waste Management to be excellent for our community. And I think for us, or for many of us as residents, I do think that I don't know Julian, but I know Rocky. And, you know, he goes above and beyond. I know he's been with us at least 20 years, and I know, and when I say he goes above and beyond, I know there are things that he does for residents who, you know, may not have the ability at times to take out their trash, that they will help folks do that. Really go above and beyond, and they're frankly they're part of the fabric of our neighborhoods. You know, if you know Rocky, he always has a smile for you. When you know, and will always smile and wave. And you know, our whole family knows him, and I appreciate the consistency and seeing him as part of our community every week. So I think there is a lot in terms of the quality that we're seeing of the service. I'm pleased with the work you're doing on this, Todd. I think the point is well taken with respect to yard waste in terms of how expensive it is as far as disposal. And I appreciate that, you know, we do have the flexibility going forward to pull back on that if we decide that's what we should be doing.
And we can certainly continuously, which we will, you know, I can assure you that, look at alternatives for the yard waste or locations that might be cheaper or, you know, different options. Something that we're just not going to push off to the side where it's a large variable with respect to the bottom line number on this whole contract with them. So it is something that we will continuously look at.
Thank you, Todd. And Heather, I have to tell you that Chris looked at me, we discussing something one morning, and I said that, well, I've actually seen Rocky stop, get out of the truck and look at a recycling barrel and decide not to pick the thing up. And Chris said, well, Joe, that's his job. But, you know, not everybody is as diligent as they could be or should be. So he really is an exceptional employee, and I've seen it with my own eyes. So
Yeah,
that brings us back to Chris, what you suggested to me about polling Mary Ann and Rob, they would support this 11th pickup. Is that correct?
Yes, if the board would like an additional pickup, the board would need to vote the additional pickup.
Before we do, I think there's a question in the Q&A that is germane.
Okay. Tish, would you be so kind?
Sure. John Cummings, 4 Chickadee Lane. I would like to commend both drivers. I have personally seen Rocky jump out of the truck, grab the barrels from an elderly couple at the side of their house, empty the barrels, then return the barrels to the side of the house. Well, when I asked him about it later at our house, he told me he was happy to do it. They are such a nice couple. Then we have a question from Kathy Wallace, 283 Farm Lane. Please clarify how many collections are scheduled in 2025. The brochure that I received in January says we have 11 now, but none in the summer. The 2024 brochure had 11 pickups, but none in the summer.
Brendan, are you aware of the calendar of us saying that we had 11 on the
calendar? To my knowledge, this part of the negotiations didn't make it as of printing for the calendar. So the calendar is showing 10 collections, and we would have to message out if the board decides to go with the 11th.
I think, Mr. Chair, if I may, I think
Yes,
that
correct.
if I'm not mistaken, Todd and Brendan, I think on the calendar, it shows some type of indicator when yard waste is going to be collected. And I think for the month of March that goes into April, I think it's showing 2 different indications for the same week, though. I think that's where someone may be counting 11 versus 10.
Okay.
Yeah, you caught that before, Chris.
I know, Joe, you and I had that conversation.
Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
that publicly.
Good pickup. Good pickup. All right, Rob, Mary Ann, what do you folks want to do?
I mean, the one question that I've had consistently throughout is just, is the additional pickup versus the movement of 1 to July necessary? Right? That's because, you know, do we need to spend an extra 30 grand, 28 grand for this if we could accommodate it by moving one back to July where it originally was. That's been sort of my standing question as to the necessity of the spend. I understand the objective is to be able to have a summer pickup. Totally fine with that. Absolutely fine with that. Just want to make sure that the incremental spend is actually necessary.
Mary Ann?
I'd like to hear Todd's thought on that question.
All right.
Well,
I think Todd did answer it with his contingency, but go ahead, Todd.
I've always said, and I think Brendan will maybe even better suited, operationally speaking, but it's all seasonally driven in my eyes. Is it a wet summer, spring, dry summer, spring? When are the leaves falling? How much is the grass growing? How frequently are you mowing? I mean, I think that dictates a lot of how much yard waste is collected at each household. So it's a tough one to answer. I would say some seasons you could say, yeah, we could use an extra pickup. Other seasons you could probably say you'd be hard pressed maybe to have 9. I just think it's all mother nature driven. But Brendan, am I off on that or?
Sorry, you can hear me? I'm
Yeah,
up.
we can
Yeah,
hear
no, I would agree. I think it is seasonally driven. I mean, when we did make the decision to kind of remove the summer collection years ago and build it into the fall collection, that's when, the driving force was behind it for the material.
But Brendan, if I'm not mistaken, that was 10 years ago, is that correct?
I don't think it was that far, Joe. It was probably 8 years, maybe, I would say.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm just, what I'm suggesting, Brendan, is things change, I think. I was saying to someone the other day about a manager here about how employees like to know their schedule and they want to make sure their paycheck is right. And I think the same goes for yard waste pickup. The residents would like to know if there's going to be a yard waste pickup or not.
Yep.
Todd, I think you were abundantly clear about that you felt comfortable that you had enough of contingency. So I'm going to keep pushing for this for the seniors. I prefer not to push it on town meeting floor, but if I have to, I will. I'd like to see us do it here. I'd love to get that article off the warrant.
I don't think we can now, right?
Well, technically you're right, Rob, but if I get to go, please vote indefinite postponement, I'll be a happy camper. But I'd like to have some assurance here. If we're going to support this to help the seniors out.
So I heard, go ahead, Mary.
I just wanted to ask another question. So Todd, we talked about the fact that we could modify the contract later to pull back a pickup. Is there a way that we can evaluate going forward, how well used these pickups are?
Yeah.
Yes. Heather's definitely got some numbers behind kind of what the collection numbers are. Heather, I'm not sure if you have that at your disposal right now, but she's able to quantify what the collection and disposal of that material is as far as tonnage go. Is that correct, Heather?
Yeah, it's based on loads. They don't have a scale at Hyde Park, so it's based on loads. So to give you an example, in last year, we disposed of 93 loads, and that's based on 10 weeks. So you got to figure, a load and a half, averaging a load and a half. But I can look at hours. We haven't done a summer collection in quite some time, but I'm happy to look at hours for you to give you a comparison. The one thing that I will say is that we are very flexible. So you can proceed with the 11 weeks. And if we determine you don't want it, then we could change it. We could do it 1 year and wait and see. We can go up or down or whatever you want to do. We just need to, like Todd said, yard waste, it's so sporadic. We never know when the leaves are going to fall. They all seem to fall at once, right? Then we wish we had more than 2 trucks out there, but unfortunately we can't predict that. So it's driven by the climate. You know, so if there's a need, we'll do it. If you don't want us to do it, we don't have to. We can change the schedule around, whatever you want to do. We're flexible. I just need a little bit of time just to plan, because we, you know, we do have to pull drivers in to do those weeks. It's not consistent all year round, so we have to plan that. So that's all I ask.
Heather,
Yeah, I think from a budget standpoint, to just double up on this again, I think we do have that flexibility to do this, as it could be deemed as a trial per se, or it's embedded in the contract. I mean, either way, it's that level of
Yeah.
flexibility is huge. So we're not married to it.
Appreciate that flexibility, Heather, Todd, Brendan, absolutely. You know, I
Yeah.
guess, so if we're gonna proceed with it as a test, which I don't have a conceptual problem with, what is our pass-fail metric as to whether it is something that we want to continue to do or not?
please don't everybody answer at once.
So I don't know what the average is, but Todd and Brendan, if I'm not mistaken, DPW did some type of study prior to my arrival regarding tonnage, which is how, if I'm not mistaken, the summer collection got moved to the fall, because that's when you have greater need. Would there be some type of tonnage based on the collection?
I would say we would be able to work with Heather to be able to provide that information to you guys, to give, you know, some numbers to quantify, you know, what we're seeing. And then if there's a decision that needs to be made by this board again, after some numbers are provided, that might be appropriate, Rob.
I think the timing of it as well, we'd have to gauge that with respect to Stephanie in the budget planning process, because I would like to obviously go forward, like say next October, November, and have an idea of, are we accounting for a $30,000 line, or is it 30,000 less with respect to the budget? So from a timing standpoint, when is the last collection that we have scheduled? Brendan or Heather, do you know off the top of your head? I know it's
usually right around the last week of November, maybe the first week in December. We try not to get into December, obviously, for the, you know, the winter months starting. But I think this last collection, I think, did go into the first week of December, if I'm not mistaken.
Brendan, on the website, you have, it's November 24th through the 29th is the last week in the calendar.
Okay. And Stephanie, would that jive for you from just a planning perspective of us submitting an FY 27 budget, or like where that would be okay? Not like,
Yeah, late November would be fine.
okay. So I think, I mean, fair enough. You'd have enough time to really gauge what we're looking at potentially for next year. Is it an 11th again, or was it simply not warranted, or for the love of God, is a 12th warranted, which I hope not, but we can go from there, right?
I think it would be very helpful to have that information. You know, we've spent a lot of time talking about this one additional pickup. So, and it is a significant amount of money that we're talking about. So, you know, I think it would behoove this board to better understand it and to do it on a trial basis only, to see if the need is really there, and if that is a cost worth making.
And that's the unfortunate thing too. There's things you can predict or forecast, but something like this, you know, so many variables again, a more residents not going to opt into landscapers coming to do their yards now. Are they going to take advantage of that extra pickup? So will the loads be there, or will they simply not? But without doing it, you're really not going to have a gauge or a metric behind it.
All right, we should move this along, but I do have two questions. Brendan and anyways, I've heard a lot of discussion about tonnage, but Heather, correct me if I'm wrong. You're telling me that folks at Hyde Park don't have scales. You look at loads. I think you said, yeah, so I'm not sure why we're looking at tonnage, but you did say you had 93 loads for 10 weeks. But did that include, and Chris, kudos to Chris, he came up with the idea of getting a dumpster up at the DPW. Did you include that in your loads?
That's included, yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I take that back. You're talking about the extra dumpster that we got in the summer. No, that's not included in that.
Okay, because that was done on short notice with 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and my understanding is it was a pretty robust response.
Yeah. It worked out well.
So,
It's an option. For
well,
sure. We can do that in the future if we need to.
yeah, if we can get the seniors to hump the barrels up over the dumpster side. But in any case, so I'd like to I think we've had enough information on this. Rob and Marion, I need to get some sort of signal from you if we're going to make a motion to support the 11th pickup is what Chris has suggested to me. So what do you folks want to do? If you don't want to do it, say so.
I'm fine with doing it, but I would want this board to look at it at the end of the year.
That's fair. Rob, you're grunting the numbers.
No, I personally think I would move one of the 10 back to July to accomplish exactly what you want is the grass pickup. And I totally get that. That's fine. I don't see the need for the additional 28,000 that's going to continue to grow to 30, 35, whatever it's going to get to as the, so in my mind, move one back. We had it there to begin with, move it back. But if you guys want to proceed with a test, I just want to understand what the pass fail is on that test. Because otherwise we're saying we're signing up for sort of 3 years. Because how do you undo it if we don't say it didn't warrant continuation? I'm not sure how we take that back. So I'm not ready to make that call. I'm happy to move one back to July. Happy to do that to accomplish the objective of picking up the grass clippings. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
Thank you, Rob.
To your point, Rob, if I could to spend more time on this, I hear you, Brendan, saying, we can weigh what's coming in. You folks have the ability to do that. Do I have that right?
No,
No,
I
don't.
guess I should clarify how we quantify that material is not by weighing. So Heather did clarify that it's not by tonnage, it is by load.
Okay, so I misunderstood something you said. I did hear Heather say that it's by load. So
Marianne, I think I misspoke on that. I apologize.
okay.
I'm the one who said that. Sorry about that.
So, to Rob's point, is there some way where we can actually evaluate, it's really not worth it to have a pickup on X date because, there was only, a bucket full of stuff or what have you. How can we evaluate this?
I'll speak first and then let Heather weigh in from the operational standpoint, but I think what we'd be able to do is look at last year's numbers versus this upcoming numbers with driver hours and loads and be able to quantify it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would suggest as well.
Okay.
That sounds pretty reasonable to me, Brendan. What do you think, Marianne?
I've already stated my position. I'm okay with the notion of including this in the way Todd has laid out, but with the very specific provision that this board will look at, and I realize I can't bind a future board, but I would like to see this board look at this as a trial to see if they're really if the cost justifies the need and the services to the community.
And Rob, to your point, can you accept what Brendan and Heather just said as far as evaluating what happens on that pickup?
I think so. I would be I'm concerned that there is not my guesstimate is going to be that the reason it got moved in the first place is it was the lowest tonnage or the lowest number of loads pickup of any of the pickups that we do, and therefore is likely to be again. So what's the threshold it needs to exceed in order to be something that we maintain?
I think that's something we're gonna have to sit down, put our heads together after that pickup. But I'm also gonna suggest, Rob, that, you know, I don't like doing business on practices that we had 8 years ago. I think we ought to give this a shot and evaluate. I think Todd and Brendan are pretty straight shooters, and they have a good relationship with Heather working on this. And they should be able to give us some sort of objective picture about after the season. All right. I'll toss that out there. Does anybody want to make a motion for the 11th pickup?
Mr. Chair, you do have two comments in the Q&A, if you wanted those.
Okay, thank you. Tish?
See. Claire Galkowski, I greatly appreciate that Todd, Brendan, and Carrie met with me for so long this month. They clarified a lot of things for me. I still have to ask though. Would DPW consider going out to bid at least for the yard waste collection portion of the contract? A 41% increase over last year per pickup is huge, over 100,000 for 11 collections. The whole contract hasn't been bid out since fiscal year 12. DEP allows free tech assistance for bidding things out, and I would be willing to help as well. Awesome, Claire. And then there's a question, comment or question from Michael Gay, 219 Weatherby Drive. If we agree to this 11th yard waste pickup as part of the Public Works operational budget, we are effectively planning on that spend for subsequent years. If we are going to test this in FY26, should we have this additional 25 to 30,000 be funded through free cash or another funding source? He said, oops, 291 Weatherby Drive.
I can comment on just Claire's question briefly. Claire, we certainly, it's something like I mentioned earlier that we're going to continuously look at. We're not bound and, restricted to sticking with waste management with respect to yard waste collection. I already have some ideas on my own just to possibly branch out and get some pricing and just see where we would be at just with a different couple of other options. But it's definitely something that is not going to be pushed by the wayside, and we'll continuously look at the yard waste collection.
And Todd, just to refresh my memory, you said from the very beginning that you were comfortable with the contingency that you put into the contract for that 11th pickup. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Thanks, Todd.
The contingency with respect to the FY26 budget that was submitted. Yes.
All right, folks, what do we want to do?
Here's another comment.
Tish, would you be so kind?
Sure. Fran Fusco, 20 Pine Lane. How many of you on the select board have a lawn service? I do not, and I can tell you the amount of yard waste that sits in my yard just rotting and having to be rebagged 3 times. And then Claire Galkowski just commented, thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Tish.
All
Todd,
right.
was there something else you wanted to say?
No,
Okay.
no. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so my understanding is we need a motion.
Yeah, and just to address Mike's question, Mike Gay's question, I think what we're discussing here is that this program is going to be evaluated before the next budget is discussed. So future board can spend more time talking about the yard waste pickup. I will move that the contract include the 11 yard waste pickups.
There a second?
No.
Pat, I'm gonna have to turn to you for some advice.
You can second it out of a sense of necessity, Joe.
Thank you, Pat. Then I will second this out of necessity. Roll call, Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
No.
And I will vote aye. Motion carries 2-1. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Mary Ann. Todd, Heather, nice meeting you. Brendan, thanks so much for weighing in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move down to annual town meeting article discussion, potential vote to amend, accept, and or remove articles. Chris, are you going to take the point on this?
I'm happy to, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So the recommendation that we have for the board this evening is to use, we have two recommendations. One is to use your miscellaneous Article 3 for a street acceptance of Birch Lane, excuse me. We have worked with DPW, we worked with town council. We'll continue to work to provide the information as part of the FinCom process. But the recommendation would be to use miscellaneous 3 for that. There would be a cost for this. And as in the past with other betterments, it would be a $27,500 cost to the town, and that would also be shared by the 5 residents on that on Birch Lane by area of frontage. So it will be broken down by frontage, but the total amount that the 5 properties would pay would be $27,500, and what the town would contribute would be $27,500.
Oh, and that's number 3, right, Chris?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mary and Rob, any thoughts on that suggestion?
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Likewise.
Chris, what else do you have?
The other recommendation, Mr. Chair, is to make a recommendation to the board to remove miscellaneous articles 10, 12, and 11 from your list. Or 11 and 12, if we're going in sequential order. So.
Thank you.
So those are the 2 recommendations to the board regarding the warrant article listing this evening.
Chris, do we need to vote on that?
Yes, you would need to
Yes.
vote on, I would recommend voting on each one separately, but I will defer to town council.
I agree with the town administrator in that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anything else, Chris? On these?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion that we swap miscellaneous article number 3 for the Birch Lane acceptance?
I will move that the select board use miscellaneous article number 3 to create select board 10, Article 10, street acceptance Birch Lane.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well, unanimous.
I also move,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Okay.
Chris, how many miscellaneous articles do we have left if we remove 11 and 12? Do we have
7.
8 left? 7? Okay, thank you.
I move that the select board remove miscellaneous article number 11 and miscellaneous article number 12.
Second that motion.
Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you. Unanimous vote. Chris, did we cover everything we needed to in regards to the articles, select board articles for tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we're all set. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this brings us down to FS1, is it? No, ambulance rates. And I assume our fire chief, Steve Lund, will be discussing this.
Mr. Chair, I believe it is the FS1 bid setting.
FS1 first, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think it is FS1.
The ambulance rate is under new business.
Give me a second here. We're gonna catch up. I'm sorry, so we're going to discuss the FS1 bidding language, is that correct?
Yes.
The project bid setting, yes.
Okay, thank you. And this-
So our owner project manager, Chin Lin, is going to give us an update on how the bid setting is going to go. And then Chip from Durham Whittier is going to talk about the proprietary specifications that will be before you tonight.
Chen Lin, you're on.
Chip, would you be sharing the screen?
Yeah, if I have permission to share, I will do so now.
That's up to Tish. I'm just a figurehead.
Looks like it's working.
In terms of bidding, can you go to the dates? So on the where we are is that we're ready. This week we will be ready to approve the pre-qualification list, and then that will be this on February 27th. And then on March 14th, we would have the bid documents ready for the for everybody, and then the file subbid due date is April 3rd, and then the general contractor bid due date is April 17th. And then if we have to give more time to the process, we can push it back to April 24th, or actually, and then we'll still be in time to report back to the FinCom on the April 28th. And then the rest of it will be then we'll be ready to go to the that will allow us to go to the town meeting on May 19th, and followed by a debt exclusion vote. Any questions, concerns?
Not at this time, Chen.
Chip, it's yours.
Sure. I'm getting a text. Is Don trying to get in? Just seeing.
Oh, he declined, but let me try one more time.
Yeah, if you can try him again. I think he said he missed it.
Okay, hold on.
Happy to join.
All right.
But yeah, so as Molly indicated, there are a couple proprietary specifications that we would that we're requesting. Many of these are fairly typical for our projects. Some of them driven for different reasons. The first one on the list, and there's only 6 of them, so I mean, I think we could just walk through these pretty quickly. Is, you know, it's a thermal insulation product that is, it has a bearing capacity that is just meets the needs of our project so that we can bear masonry on it. And this allows us to build to construct our exterior wall details such that they meet the energy code more efficiently, and they reduce without using a relieving angle or other structural methods that would provide thermal breaks in the wall. This allows us to build our exterior masonry in a way that kind of takes that concern away. So this is the only product on the market that are able to use for this. It's the only one that has the bearing capacity. Based on, you know, the mass law, you know, we're requesting that be a proprietary item for our project. And just so then on the sectional doors, these are the overhead doors for the apparatus bays. Based on where we are with the energy code and how the requirements we need to meet, there are only 2 doors on the market that have been tested and can verify that there are air infiltration and their thermal ratings can meet our code compliance for this project, based on Westwood being a stretch community. So there are 2 doors, but there is not a 3rd door. So in this case, we are narrowing our possible products to 2 options, but unless we can have 3, by the way that the law is written, we need to apply. This would also be a proprietary item. So based on those reasons, we're requesting that. The Forbo flooring, this is a flocked flooring. It's called flock flooring. The product is called Flotex. I know we used it at the Pine Hill School. And what this product does, it makes it different, and it's only different because, you know, it has the backing of it is currently still under patent, so nobody can replicate it in the market right now. in a couple of years, that will be different and this will be unnecessary. But this is it's a very nice product that it performs like a resilient flooring, but it has the feel and the acoustical qualities of a carpet. So it kind of threads that needle. So they can use typical methods for cleanup, but they don't have, and it doesn't have, it's hyperallergenic and all of that. So it does have a benefit to the department. So and it's, like I said, it's the only product on the market. There are other ones that are similar, but technically there are trade-offs and they're not truly equal. So for that reason, we're requesting that one proprietary as well. This is just a key box that the department has. This guy goes on the exterior of the building so that if the building was completely locked and access needed to be gained from someone outside of the department, this is the key box that is compatible with all the other keys in town. So somebody could come from the police building and would be able to access that box. So for that reason, we list that as proprietary. The turnout gear lockers in off of the apparatus bay, this is another one where there technically are two options on the market. One of them, however, does not have a raceway, a compatible raceway that would allow the power to be run to each locker. So in this case, if you were to get the other locker, there would need to be other items provided to allow that conduit to run. Usually, we've done this on projects where you'll be suspending it from structure, building drywall clouds up there, and then you have painting. So you have all these additional costs. So those additional costs would not be reflected in the bidding process. It would be recognized by the project, though. So your overall project cost would be higher if you were to get the other product. So this product actually allows for, and they're comparable products price-wise. This product does have an accessory that allows us to run the power to all the lockers. So for that reason, and for the betterment of the project, because we don't have to build all those other components, we have number 5. We are asking to be proprietary as well. And lastly, the fire poles themselves in the station are a proprietary item. There's just no other company that makes them. This is the only show in town. And technically, maybe not town, but they are a Massachusetts company, and they're a Massachusetts first company. So we don't have a problem using them, and they're the only option. So for that reason, we're recommending that one be approved as a proprietary item as well.
Thank you, Chip.
Yep. Any questions on any of those? I can go back.
I have a question, Chip. Just a quick one. I'm just curious, what is the useful life of the Forbo flooring?
I don't have the useful life off the top of my head. It is from a warranty perspective. Are you asking from a warranty perspective or from a usability perspective?
More usability. I'm just curious.
I can get that information and forward that around because it's a pretty popular product. So we do have that. We do have that information. I just don't have it offhand.
No worries.
Good question, Marianne.
I didn't have any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rob.
Mr. Chair, point of order, if I may.
Please.
Gentlemen, two questions. I don't believe we need individual motions for each one of these. We can do a group motion for all 6. Is that correct?
That is fine with us. The only requirement is that they are individually signed by the chair.
Do they have to be wet? That was my next question. Do you want wet signatures or would electronic signatures be okay?
Don, I don't know if you have a preference or if you had that question asked before. I'm neutral.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard that before, but electronic should suffice.
So, in whoever makes the motion should allow for electronic signature.
Chip, you realize that I'm someplace where it's warm. So if it has to be a wet signature, you might have to bring it down to me.
I'm not opposed.
And just for the purpose of the motion, electronic signatures to be affixed to the certificate?
There are, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, there is a document. I'm not sure it was in your packet, Mary Ann. Go ahead, Pat.
So there's a document for each one of these in your packet. Okay, and so that's where Joe's signature has to go.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the term of art for these. What are we calling
I would
these?
think it's plural, Mary Ann.
Excuse me?
I would think it's plural.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann. Please do.
I shall. Okay, I move that the select board, hello? I move that the select board designate the cellular glass insulation, the overhead sectional doors, the flocked flooring, the rapid entry system, the TOG lockers, and the fire pole assembly as proprietary for bidding purposes, and further to allow for the electronic signatures of the select board to be affixed to the record of vote for proprietary designation for those products.
One point of clarification, just, I don't know that it's the signatures of the select board. I think it's just the select board chair. Is that correct, Pat?
It is the select board chair who has to sign.
I accept that friendly amendment to my motion.
And I will second that amended motion.
Roll call, Mary Ann.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Mary Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Chip. Thanks, Don. Good night, Steve.
He's not done yet. Mr. Chair, just if I could give 2 more notes on this.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead.
Just to
Molly.
reiterate, in the chair's update, you noted that we'll be having a community meeting next Tuesday at 7 p.m. at the Westwood Public Library to have a discussion with firefighter about the project. And then just a note to the board that we will be before you again at your March 10th meeting to give an update on the budget and the last cost estimate that we'll be getting back in the next few days.
Thank you, Molly.
Mary Ann Chin wrote in that the Flotex is a 30-year product for the floor.
Thank you, Chief. It's good to know.
All right, next we have, correct me if I'm wrong, acceptance of grant MassDOT. I think this is Todd.
It is, Todd. I'm happy to share with the board on Public Works behalf. That's okay.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris.
So this is just yet another example of the work that team members do, in this case specifically Public Works, seeking non-tax dollar money to improve Westwood. So Todd and Brendan and his team, their team put together a grant and was awarded a grant in the amount of $1,041,646.60. This is part of the MassDOT Municipal Paving Program. And these funds, if approved by the board, would be used to pave Washington Street. So the work that would be that would go into this would be milling of the road, raising and adjusting all castings, applying new pavement surface, and associated roadway striping. The limits of the work are from the intersection of Washington and Gay Street to Washington and Clapwood Tree intersection. The exact timing has not yet been determined, but the work would be scheduled to begin around April of 25. This is a huge, as you know, with the dollar amount, this is a huge effort that was made on behalf of Public Works. Certainly want to thank them for their continued efforts seeking out grant opportunities, and this would certainly be a huge benefit to Westwood.
Thank you, Chris. I have two questions on that, Chris. Are you finished pitch hitting?
Yes, I am done pitch hitting.
Excellent. My question is, and this is prior to your arrival, but will all of the current crosswalks be restored after this paving, which I don't think you can answer, but I certainly like to, if you could discuss that with Todd, I'd appreciate it.
I certainly would, and I will get back to the board.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, you said from the Dedham Town Line to Clabbertree Street, but the plan shows it stopping at Marshall Street.
So it's what I have is from Washington Street / Gay Street to the Washington Street Clapwood Street intersection.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Rob, Marianne?
One of the better parts of the job, being able to accept a grant like this.
Yeah, just kudos to Todd, Brendan, and the DPW team. And
I
thanks.
agree. Anybody like to make them? Oh, is there any are there any questions on this?
No questions.
I see something in the,
That was Chin saying that the useful life is
Oh.
30 years on the Flotex flooring, so.
okay, thanks, Rob.
Yep.
All right, is there a motion?
Yes, I move that this board accept the MassDOT Municipal Pavement Program Grant Award of $1,041,646.60 and authorize the town administrator to sign the grant documents.
Second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call. Marianne?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. And Chris, please extend our kudos to Todd, Brendan on their work on this.
Certainly will, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Next, we have discussion of ambulance rates. I believe we have Fire Chief Steve Lund here. Steve, would you like to walk us through this?
Sure, I'm gonna share my screen if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. There we go. All right, so little background on it, ambulance billing. We get payments from commercial insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and direct billing, the majority of which comes from commercial insurance. Direct billing, right now it's showing less than 5%. As we get more experience with this current company that we have doing our billing, that'll go way down. That's usually people who don't have any insurance. And quite honestly, if they don't have insurance, they're probably going to qualify for an abatement anyway. So it's really almost a moot point. This is what we currently charge. Mileage is self-explanatory. BLS is, you know, your sprained ankles, things like that. You don't doing any medications or anything. ALS 1 is when they're administrating a medication and an IV and using the monitor. And then ALS 2 would be a cardiac arrest or trauma where they're really using their advanced skills. You can see in this, it might be a little tough for you to see, but we are currently one of the lowest as far as what we charge to the insurance companies. Pretty much the lowest. I think there's one more that's a little bit lower than us. So why am I looking to do this? The rates haven't been increased in 5 years. EMS equipment, which is the stretchers, the monitors, the stuff we use constantly, is going up a minimum of 5% a year. EMS supplies, which would be your IVs, tubing, stuff like that, consumables. They said they're going up 2.5% to 5% twice a year. And then we also use this money to purchase new ambulances, the cost of which is now around 500,000, maybe even a little bit higher. So this is where I'm proposing we go to, be increasing to $50 per mile, and that's transport mile. That's once we pick them up to the hospital. And then you can see the other rates for BLS, ALS1, ALS2. So what's the impact? Commercial insurance will be paying the majority of this. Medicare and Medicaid, they have a schedule that they pay. Doesn't matter what you bill, they're going to pay what they pay. And then for our residents, we don't bill copays, and we do bill deductibles, but those are usually set, so there shouldn't be an increase there. People will ask if you increase your rates, is my premiums going to go up? EMS, the ambulances in all of healthcare account for 0.3% of the total amount of things that go into your premiums. So the town of Westwood increasing by a couple $100 isn't gonna affect your premiums. So for billing the patients, like I said, it goes into one of those things. All residents won't pay copays, and they will have to pay the deductibles. Non-residents will be billed their copays and deductibles. Financial hardship. So any person that doesn't exceed 500% of the national poverty rate, federal poverty rate, will automatically have their bill abated. Anyone who can demonstrate financial hardship, and it's just a one-page form that the billing company sends out, would be considered, and that would be up to me and the billing company. So these are some of the things that you need to have to attest to qualify to have it abated. You know, if you're on WIC, if you food stamp eligible, these are just some of the questions that they'll ask in that one-page form. And if you qualify for those, you're going to qualify for the relief. And that's it.
Thank you, Steve. Done some good work.
Thank you.
That's some good work. Very thorough. Mary Ann, do you have any questions?
I first of all, thank you, Chief. Thank you for doing that work. I think we should definitely move forward with your recommendation. And I also saw in our packet your suggestion that the department do a yearly review going forward. And I completely agree with that as well, so that we can stay competitive in the future. So thank you for doing all of this work.
You're welcome. And I forgot to say during the presentation, when I was talking to the billing company, they said, basically, if you don't increase what you charge in the commercial insurers, what you're in effect doing is subsidizing them with tax dollars. And that's just silly. If they're willing to pay it, let's have them pay it. So.
Good point. Anything else, Mary Ann?
No, thank you.
Okay. Rob, any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, just one. You know, Chief, I totally agree that, you know, this needs to be adjusted, get us, you know, more in line with some of the surrounding communities. And sort of to that end, if you could, for the next time, because I don't think we're voting anything tonight, I think we're going to vote it at a future meeting. Could you just take, right now you got Westwood at the bottom of that, but that looks like it's sort of alphabetically, but it also happens to be numerically that we're at the bottom as well.
Yeah.
Could you also just do that where you take the new rates and you sort them so that we see that, we're not going all the way to the top of the list, just where would we fall in that, peer community or surrounding community type of list?
Yeah, we're gonna be right in the middle. And we're actually gonna be right where Norwood just was. They just increased theirs, so now they're at the top. We're gonna maintain right in the middle. Because when I spoke with several of you, that was the direction I go. We don't want to be the leader in what we're charging people, so.
Yeah, but definitely agree with you. There's no reason to be subsidizing the insurance companies.
Right.
Right, and my understanding is we're going to vote on this at our next meeting, is that correct? Chris?
Yeah, so the suggestion, Mr. Chair, is for the board to hear the presentation from Chief Lund. If the board's in support of the direction where that the chief is recommending, then at your next meeting on March 10th, we would have a recommendation before you to increase the rates.
I think it's abundantly clear from my colleagues, Steve, that we support the work that you've done, and we'd be more than happy to vote this at our next meeting.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Steve. Now I'll say goodnight. You
Thank you,
deserve some
Chief.
rest. Done a great job.
Thank you. Have a
Okay,
good
let's-
night.
Yeah, you too. Let's move on to FS1 communication. I assume that's you, Molly?
I can take that. This is under old business because at your August 19th meeting back in 2024, the select board authorized a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $25,000 for PR work to be performed by Ellis Strategies for the FS1 project. The FS1 working group has been working with Ellis, and we've realized that authorization was a little bit too narrow. So we're looking to extend the authorization of this funding to include other necessary items in association with communication for the FS1 project. That includes paying Westwood Media Center for recording the community meetings that we've been having and will be having, video production and editing, printing costs, and postage. So we're looking for the select board to extend that authorization. We're not asking for any additional funds, just that the $25,000 can be used a little bit more broadly for communications for the FS1 project.
Thank you, Molly. Makes sense. Rob, Marion, do you folks have any questions?
No questions. I think it's a good idea, as we've discussed here before. I think we need to make the extra effort to educate residents on the project. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Rob, any thoughts, comments?
No, I just think, for learning for next time when we have something like this, let's not so narrowly define it. But overall, I think it's
Good point.
it's money well spent, to Marianne's point.
Excellent. All right, would anybody like to make a motion?
I will. I move that this board extend the authorization of $25,000 for PR work to be performed by Ellis Strategies to include other communications for the FS1 project.
Second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call. Marianne?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you, Molly. And Chris. Next, we have our Westwood Media Center transfer of funds. From Comcast and Verizon per the contracts for the PEG access funding to Westwood Media Center. Chris, do you want to present this, or would you like me to read through it?
I'm happy to read it, Mr. Chair, if you like.
Sure.
So this is a transfer that the board has made in the past. As the chair said, these are funds that are collected from the cable providers. And then what the board has done in the past is we pass those funding on to Westwood Media Center for them to provide the PEG access and the programming and educational information that they do provide to our residents. We have received a total of $85,238.91 and that is broken down into two different amounts, one from Comcast and one from Verizon. The amount from Comcast is $46,181.71, and the amount from Verizon is $39,057.20.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions, Rob, Marianne, or in the audience? I don't see.
Not for
Marianne,
me.
would you like to make a motion?
I would. I move that this board approve the transfer of $46,181.71 from Comcast, as well as $39,057.20 from Verizon, totaling $85,238.91 to Westwood Media Center per the license agreements and the Westwood Media Center agreements signed by the Select Board.
Second that motion.
Roll call, Marianne,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Next, we have our liaison reports, I believe. Rob, do you have anything to contribute on this?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Thank you, Rob. Marianne?
Just briefly, the Commission on Disability recently met, and I wanted to recognize one of our town team members, Janice Donovan, who has been staffing the COD, but is moving on to a new position in town as the Assistant Town Clerk. The COD was very sad to lose her because she has been fantastic in her work on behalf of the COD. But we wish her well in her new position, and the COD is hopeful to get some assistance with staffing, particularly as we'll be applying for the ADA grant that we spoke about. But we really wanted to thank Janice for her great service to the COD.
Excellent. And my report is on the Housing Partnership Fair Housing Plan. We met recently. Amanda has done a terrific job on steering us and helping us better understand things. She's done some great surveys. We put our plan for 25 together. She's given us an assignment, and we hope to do our homework and have this wrapped up for our next meeting and have some public presentations in the future. That's all I have from my end. All right, that brings us down to, any other, nope, meeting minutes. Acceptance of regular meeting minutes, January 22nd, 2025, January 29th, 2025.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Please, yes.
I move that we accept the regular meeting minutes for January 22, 2025 as written.
Second that motion.
Roll call, Marianne,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Minutes accepted. Next, we have other business, and under this,
One more set of minutes. I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, okay, I thought we had them both. Okay.
I move that we accept the regular meeting minutes for our meeting on January 29, 2025 as written.
Second that motion as well.
Roll call, Marianne,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Tish, well done. Thank you. Next, other business that may come before the board. Public and press. Oh, shoot. I think I see a question there, Tish.
You do. You have a question from Kathy Wallace, 283 Farm Lane. First, I would like to hear what our town administrator has done to date as it relates to Norwood Hustle being closed for almost 5 years. Are you actively working with other regional town administrators, our Massachusetts representatives and federal representatives to emphasize the dire need and impact on our firefighters and residents? If yes, what is the response and action plan? And then second, has Westwood asked the Commonwealth to provide any type of compensation to offset the cost of overtime and wear and tear on our ambulances due to the hospital being closed?
Chris, that question was directed to you, but I'm going to Rob, I'm gonna fall on you and Steve as well, but Chris, would you like to lead off with that?
Sure, Mr. Chair, happy to do so. So we have a number of us, including myself, Rob, Chief Lund, have been attending different meetings that Norwood has put on regarding the hospital. So yes, this is a vital part of what we do from a public safety standpoint. It has had a major impact on the fire department as well as other fire departments in the area. And we're continuing to work through that group to identify to our elected officials the importance of Norwood Hospital and working with the governor to see if there's something that can be done much faster to get Norwood Hospital back up to an acute care level. Chief Lund, is there anything you want to add to that?
Just that if they want further information, they finally launched their website. It's finishthejobnorwood.com. And that'll give you all the updates from the legislators and everything, and everything about the meetings that we've been having.
Thank you, Steve. And Rob, I think you went to a meeting. Do you have any, although Chris may have covered it on you, but do you have anything else you want to say about it?
No, I mean, I think we were the only non-Norwood folks there present when DPH came to do a public listening session. And I was there with, I think, Chief, you were sick at that point, and I think Colin came with me as well.
Okay.
And, you know, we certainly let them know that the burden that this closure has put on our community as well as many of the surrounding communities. And then somewhere in the summertime, I also had an opportunity to be in the presence of Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, and I had a conversation where I mentioned a few things that could help us. You know, it'd certainly be nice to have an MSBA for public safety and public works types of buildings as well, where the state can partner with us on that, and you know, also mentioned the burden that is the closure of Norwood Hospital. That was before, I believe, the DPH. It was sort of in and around the same time. I can't remember exactly when that took place, but I certainly made sure that we had an opportunity to put a plug in there.
And
And the gov-
if I may,
ahead.
I just wanted to add that Congressman Lynch has been speaking out about this topic, and in fact, very recently in the last week or so, and it is clearly a project that is on his agenda. So there, I know that the political will is being brought to bear by our congressional leaders as well.
Thank you, Marianne.
Yeah, the
And Rob-
governor just appointed a task force 2 or 3 weeks ago to start working on this. So they're getting in behind us now too.
I think I stepped on you there, Steve. You said the governor appointed a task force?
Yes.
Thank you. And Rob, kudos to you. I think that's the second time you've cornered the lieutenant governor about the MSBA. So good, keep plugging away, man.
May doing the work, man. Just trying to get us a couple extra shekels, you know.
Hey, I saw you in action. I saw you in action. All right. Thank you all very much. Let me move on to our next agenda item. Here is public and press. Anything, Kathy, thank you for your question. Is there anything else from public or press?
No other questions?
Thank you. The Select Board will be attending the Finance and Warrant Commission public hearing on February 25th and 26th, if necessary, via Zoom webinar at 7 p.m. I'm not sure who's pitch hitting for me, but thank you in advance. The next Select Board meeting will be held on March 10th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. And right now, the Select Board is going to move into executive session. Select Board will be going into executive session to discuss one issue pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation involving the property at 637 High Street, discussion of which would have a detrimental effect on the position of governing body if the discussion were in open session. The board will not be returning to open session. Did I cover everything, Pat? Okay. Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session?
I hereby move that this board go into executive session for the aforementioned reason.
Second that motion.
Roll call. Marianne,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you, Tish, Molly, Stephanie, nice seeing you. Steve, great job tonight. Thank you, Pat, Chris. See you folks on the other side.
Good night, everyone.